Long ball is going to go for a touchdown. The game's over. Webster Slaughter.
Metcalf will go for the score. Unbelievable.
45-40. Run, William, run. He's got blockers in front. 5. Touchdown. Joshua Cribbs turns disaster into a score.
Sight wants it all on this one for Logan, and he is there.
Jim Brown to the 30. Jim Brown is going to go in for another touchdown.
The Cleveland Browns select Baker Mayfield.
Wow.
It is Baker Mayfield.
I woke up feeling dangerous.
Hello, Cleveland. Welcome to Season 3 of the 1085 Gridiron podcast. I am your host, Anthony Joki, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Jack McCurry of BigPlay.com. How you doing tonight, Jack?
Doing well. Can't believe it's Season 3 already of this podcast, man. Time has flown by so fast these last couple of years.
It really has. I mean, we started this right before they went 0-16. I think it's time that we deserve some good football. And I think this year we're going to get that. So what we have planned for today is we're going to kind of give you guys a brief overview of our Week 1 opponent, the Tennessee Titans. We're not going to go into full detail yet, but we just want to take a look at some of the storylines that surround the Tennessee Titans going into the season, give a scouting report based on what they're going to throw at us this Sunday. So with all that, Jack, last season they hired Mike Vrabel before the year, and they finished 9-7. They missed the playoffs, but they had a pretty good record. They were very close to making the playoffs. Going into the season, they've added to their defense. They've added to their offense. What kind of expectations do you see the Tennessee Titans having going into the season?
I mean, when you look at this Titans team and going back to last year, even, you knew we were going to get a tough physical football team out of the Titans. With Mike Vrabel, we know his background, whether it was at Ohio State, with New England, and even down in Houston. He's a defensive coach. He's going to be tough. He's going to bring physicality to the team. And that's exactly what Tennessee had. Offensively, they struggled because they didn't get good protection. Mariota was hurt. He struggled. But then they brought that tough physical running game with Derrick Henry, and he carried them down the stretch, put up some incredible numbers. Their defense brought it every week. They were a top 5 defense. They were on the cusp of making the playoffs, and that's in a division where you have the Jags, the Colts, and the Texans. And, coming into this season, I expect that tough physicality again out of Tennessee. The only difference is Mariota going to stay healthy? That's the key. I think the defense got better, and then offensively, you just wonder: A, is the offensive line with the additions they had going to be able to protect Mariota, and B, is he going to be able to produce finally in what is potentially a boomer bust season for him?
Do you think it's a boomer bust season because he's kind of he was in the same draft as Jameis Winston, and we know that situation down in Tampa Bay. Do you think Mariota has more of a leeway, or is this finally put up or shut up time for him?
I really think it's put up or shut up time. Their general manager, John Robinson, has been there a couple years. Vrabel's in his second year. Mariota's on his 5th year. And, yeah, he's gone through a lot of coaches, offensive coordinators, and a lot of personnel changes around him. But it is a boomer bust. It's his final year under contract. Clearly, the Titans didn't sign him long term, so they realize, we need to see a really giant growth out of you this year, or we're definitely going in another direction. They brought in Ryan Tannehill, who has a similar background to Mariota in terms of how their NFL careers have drawn parallels. So it's definitely a boomer bust year for him. I don't see Tannehill as a long-term fit, and honestly, at this point, I don't see Mariota as a long-term fit either.
What does Mariota have to do to take that next step? One of the big steps he took from 2017 to 2018 was his completion percentage jumped from 62% up to 69%. But what do you think he needs to do to take that next step to be a starting quarterback that the Titans can rely on for the future?
When I look at QB numbers, the one number that I look at the most is yards per attempt, and he's averaged around 7.5. I think when you look at the elite quarterbacks, they're going about 9, 10, 11 yards per attempt. So I think Mariota's biggest thing is he needs to throw it more downfield. I think because of, the time that the offensive line has given him, he's probably making quick, short dump balls, whether it's to Dion Lewis or, quick little short passes to maybe a tight end or a receiver. But I think with the weapons he has offensively, he needs to get more vertical and take more chances down the field. Yeah, he's thrown a lot of interceptions so far in his first 4 seasons, but I feel like he has the arm capable enough to make those throws. I think he needs to take more chances down the field, especially with the weapons he has.
Yeah, I think he has the weapons, but you touched on the offensive line a little bit, and he was sacked 42 times last year. And not having Taylor Lewan for the first 4 games this season, who was suspended, is certainly not going to help those numbers. Do you think this offensive line, with a backup left tackle and then the additions that they made in Roger Saffold and in drafting Nate Davis in the 3rd round, do you think those additions to the offensive line are going to be able to help them get that time to improve an offense that was ranked number 27 in the NFL?
Yeah, definitely. I think the additions are going to help. Clearly, Lewan missing the first 4 games doesn't help his cause at all. And you're going to have Dennis Kelly, who, let's just face it, he's not Taylor Lewan. He's not close to him. But, they did add Roger Saffold in free agency, gave him, I think, over $40 million. They have Jack Conklin as the right tackle, and he struggled at times, but he was drafted, and I think he was a first-round pick in 2016. There's a reason why he has the talent there. And like you said, they added Nate Davis in the draft. Currently, he's a backup, but they are expecting him to become the starting right guard at some point. So it's not that the Titans haven't invested. It's just things haven't panned out. Hopefully, once Lewan gets back, if that line lives up to the hype, then it's pretty much no excuses left for Mariota. And like we said, it's a boom or bust year. So everything's around him to succeed. It's just a matter of, can he put it all together this year?
Well, you could make an argument that they've put the players in place for him to succeed. But this will be his 5th offensive coordinator headed into his 5th season. The Titans promoted Arthur Smith to offensive coordinator this past offseason. So when you look at the coaching, you could make an argument that it hasn't been there. What does Arthur Smith, as an offensive coordinator, need to do to help Mariota succeed in his offense?
He definitely, needs to maybe bring some continuity to what maybe Matt LaFleur had here last year. I think that's the one thing, we've talked about the personnel that they put around him. Mariota, the one thing, he hasn't had continuity. So maybe Arthur Smith pulls out some of the stuff that, Mariota liked under Matt LaFleur, and then obviously implement some quick passes to, help, alleviate some of the pressure that the offensive line gives him, and obviously rely on that running game as well. I think when you have guys like Derrick Henry and Dion Lewis in the backfield, that's only going to help you. I think, obviously we know what Derrick Henry is. He's that downfield runner that's a bruising type back, and then Dion Lewis can bring it on the ground as well as in the receiving game. So, build an offense around Mariota's strengths, but also the strengths of everybody else on that offensive side of the ball as well.
You can make an argument. Maybe one of his best targets is tight end Delaney Walker, and he was quoted the other day talking about the Cleveland hype, saying it's all Cleveland this, Cleveland that. The hype surrounding the Browns this season, has not gone unnoticed by people around the NFL. And my question to you is, when you look at everything that's gone on this offseason, the additions that they made, the momentum that they look to carry from the final 7 games last year, is Sunday a must-win to you based on everything that has gone on this offseason?
Absolutely. I mean, and just looking at the whole picture, the Browns haven't won a season opener since 2004. And then you add in the fact that, we are probably the most talked about NFL team this offseason. And, we've had the national pundits hounding us, some praising us, but mostly hounding us. Can we live up to the hype? I think that's the biggest thing with the Browns is, can we live up to the expectations? And I would say it is a must win because the hype surrounding this team, I mean, Myles Garrett and Jarvis Landry were talking today at the Bud Light fridge selling event. They were saying, like, Myles Garrett said, the first couple seasons, he goes, the hype wasn't there. He goes, last year there was a little bit. He goes, this year it's on a whole nother level. And he said he hasn't seen anything like it. So it's definitely a must win for the Browns. And I feel like, we're going to be the team, much like the Cavs were when LeBron came back. We're going to be the team where every team's going to roll in and they're going to bring you your A game. And the Browns can't, come in and walk in and expect to win. They have to put in the same effort that these opponents are as well.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. I definitely think it is a must win. I mean, when you look at everything that's gone on this offseason, all the hype that is building, you don't want to start this season off on a negative foot or on a negative note. I think they'll be able to win this Sunday, but if they lose, you could possibly be staring 0-3 in the face because then you go on the road to play the Jets on Monday Night Football. Then you host LA Rams at home on Sunday Night Football, which those two games are not going to be easy either. So I really think that this Sunday is a must-win for the Browns. I think they'll get there. But you really want to start the season off on the right foot with all this hype that has gone on surrounding this team this offseason. So Taylor Lewan, we talked about it a little bit, but he's suspended for the first 4 games this season. Obviously, that hurts an offensive line that has been suspect over Mariota's time there during the course of his career. How happy do you think Myles Garrett, Olivier Vernon, Sheldon Richardson, and Larry Ogunjobi are that Taylor Lewan will not be suiting up when they take the field this Sunday?
Oh, we talked about it after the Tampa game. I'm sure they had the biggest smiles on their faces that day when they got the news. I fully expect that this Browns defense, and we've seen it in the Tampa game, and you've seen how Pittsburgh attacked it during Tennessee's dress rehearsal. Lewan didn't play that game, and their defensive front destroyed Tennessee's offensive line. And, if the Browns are as good as we all think they're going to be, especially up front, the fact that you have Myles Garrett, Olivier Vernon, Sheldon Richardson, Larry Ogunjobi, not to mention we have Jannard Avery, not to mention if Devereaux Lawrence can back up what he did in the preseason, that's 6 guys right there that can go after quarterbacks. So I'm sure they are eager to get on the field and play that Titans offensive line, because if they are as bad as they were last year, and especially without their Pro Bowl / All-Pro tackle in Lewan, the Browns defensive line is going to feast on Sunday.
And you could make an argument that the Browns D-line is one of the strongest units on a team with the current depth that they have at that position. You look at guys like Myles Garrett and Louis Vernon as your starters, but you still have Chris Smith and I'm not sure how much you could count on Chad Thomas, but he's there, and you also have Jannard Avery as well. So they have guys, the Russian edge, that are going to give the 2 tackles for Tennessee some pretty nice havoc this Sunday, and I'm excited for this Browns pass rush this season. When you look at Tennessee's offense, what do you think they can do to slow down the Browns pass rush and kind of keep the defense on its heels?
Well, you've seen it last year when Freddie Kitchens took over as offensive coordinator, how the Browns implemented a lot of quick passes to make up for a struggling offensive line, and that's exactly what I think Tennessee should do. They should do a lot of quick passes, get Deion Lewis involved with some, the screen game. Heck, even get Derrick Henry, if he's got the hands, get him involved in the screen game, because when you have a 245-pound back and he's tough to bring down. Why don't you get him involved on the outside? Even get him involved with some tosses and some sweeps or counters. He's a tough man to bring down, and it showed last year when he finally got the bulk of the carries in Tennessee. So a lot of quick passes, try to get the run game going, put some double tight end formations, a lot of things that, can help that offensive line, and they can take pressure off of them and give Mariota time to make some plays.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is giving Mariota time. If they have time to throw, I think that could really hurt the Browns. But I think that the big thing that could hurt them is the screen game. Steve Wilkes and his defense are going to want to apply pressure on the quarterbacks with, the defensive line depth that they have, and being able to get after the quarterback. So I think the screen game is going to be very important to Tennessee this week. I'm not sure how much they're going to try to run the football. I would imagine that a few halfback draws might go for some success, but we'll see what they plan to do this Sunday. When they finally line up against this defense, which has really high expectations. The Browns defense, like I mentioned, has the pass rushers, but in the defensive secondary, you have Denzel Ward in the second year, you have Demarius Randall, you have Greedy Williams, who they drafted, but you can make an argument at the other safety position is where the biggest question mark is, and what Tennessee can do to attack the safety position. We'll see. I think Adam Humphries, one of their big free agent signings, is going to be a key player that our defense is going to focus on, and he could definitely attack those seams this weekend, and I think that's where the Browns defense is most acceptable to lose yards on.
Yeah, and the fact that we have a strong pass rush is going to allow guys like Christian Kirksey and Joe Schobert, who are good coverage linebackers, to limit guys like Adam Humphrey and Delaney Walker in the middle and in the slot game, because they're going to be able to focus on that now. With the pass rush, they won't have to stay in the box. They'll be able to drop back into coverage, and hopefully that'll work out and alleviate some pressure off the secondary to have to make plays, and then they'll be able to focus on guys like Sharp and Corey Davis on the outside.
All right, when you look at Tennessee's defense, they added Cameron Wake from the Miami Dolphins, but they lost Brian Orakpo, who retired. Derek Morgan, who hasn't re-signed with the team or signed with anybody. What do you think this Tennessee defense, who was a third-ranked scoring defense in the league last year, is going to be able to do to slow down the Browns and all the new explosive playmakers that they have in offense?
Well, up front, they lost Orakpo and Morgan, like you said, but they had Harold Landry, who was their second-round pick last year, had 4.5 sacks. I would expect him to get a more prominent role on the defense. Of course, you said Cameron Wake, who feels like has been around forever and still gets after the quarterback at a productive level. They also have Jarrell Casey up front, who is one of the best defensive tackles in football. He had 7 sacks last year. You talked about the big plays and how they should limit them. They have a strong secondary. And, for the Browns fans that are expecting, big offensive explosion, it could happen. Odell Beckham is going up against Malcolm Butler. Butler's a good corner, but is he going to be able to keep up with Odell? We'll see. And then they also have Kevin Byard, who's one of the best safeties in football. Kenny Vaccaro, who is a hard-hitting, strong safety. Then they have Adoree Jackson, who's still only 23 years old. I think he's in his coming into his third year. He's getting better as a corner as well. So this defense, I don't think is going to miss a step. I think they're still going to be up there in that top 5, top 10 level. And, like I said, with Mike Vrabel, he's going to expect a tough physical defense. And I expect them to be like that right from the get-go on Sunday.
So what do you think the Browns are going to do offensively to combat the physical defense from the Tennessee Titans? Are you looking for them to run the ball? What do you think they're going to do this Sunday?
I think they're going to focus on running the football. The Titans last year, while they had, the third best scoring defense, they were 18th against the run, and they gave up 4.3 yards per carry. So I expect Nick Chubb to get quite the load, 20 to 25 carries. I expect the Browns to match that tough physicality by running the football, and by doing so, tire that defense out, and then you open up and you make some big plays, hopefully in the passing attack.
Looking at those big plays, you have Odell Beckham, you have Jarvis Landry, you have Rashard Higgins, David Njoku. How many shots do you think the Browns are going to take down the field this week to kind of set up, Odell and this new offense and some of the other guys as well to, make opponents think about, they could definitely attack down the field and have a nice vertical passing game because last year Todd Monken, who's the new defensive coordinator with who was with Tampa Bay last year, loved the vertical attacking game. So I think that's one thing that they're really going to focus on. But how often do you think they're going to go to that this Sunday against Tennessee?
Oh, I expect them to be aggressive. I mean, if they get the running game going, then that just sets up play action plays. And, and also in that, with all the talent we have offensively in the passing game, like you mentioned, Beckham, Landry, Higgins, Njoku, even Chubb out of the backfield, we've seen his ability to go catch the football. You can't double team anybody. You can't double team Beckham because then Landry and Higgins are going to get open and vice versa. So, the Titans are going to have to play a lot of man defense, although I would expect some zone as well just because there's going to be so many guys out there. But I don't think because of the talent that the Titans defense has that you're going to see Kitchens and Monken shy away from being aggressive and going downfield vertically because that's what this team's set up to do. And I don't think they're going to back down from anybody. But I do expect them to stick to their game plan, and hopefully that means running the football and just letting Chubb feast because, while they have Casey up front and they have some other guys on that defensive front, I don't think them feeding Chubb is going to be something they'll shy away from.
How do you think the Browns O-line is going to stack up against the Tennessee Titans D-line this week?
It's gonna be the battle. That's gonna be the battle to watch clearly because we mentioned Cameron Wake, we mentioned Harold Landry, they have Jarrell Casey up there, Brett Urban, solid veteran that they brought in free agency as well. So they're going to give this offensive line a hard time, and hopefully Batonio, Treader, Robinson, Hubbard, and it's gonna looks like it's gonna be Eric Kush. I think they're going to be ready for the battle. I think, they've been together for like the last 3 weeks or so in camp. So that chemistry, that camaraderie is there. And I think they know what lies ahead, and I think they're going to be prepared for it.
We're going to save our predictions for the game until later on this week. But when you look at Tennessee overall for the season, Jack, they're in a division with the Indianapolis Colts, Houston Texans, and Jacksonville Jaguars. How do you see them stacking up against those three other teams in that division? And do you think that Mike Vrabel is going to improve upon what they were able to do last year and hopefully reach the playoffs this season?
They are in a very tough division, like you mentioned. And, when I look at this whole Titans season, it just depends on what happens at the quarterback position, much like any other team. You have Mariota there. Obviously, his injury history and the way he struggled, he's got to have a strong start because Tannehill's right there. Unfortunately, I had them at the bottom of the AFC South just because despite their talented roster, I just think that the Colts, the Texans, and the Jaguars, and that's not the projected order. We'll do that later this week as well. I just think that those three teams are better than the Titans by far. And while the Titans are going in the right direction, they're not there with those other three teams yet in the AFC South.
I think it's very interesting that you have them in front of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I'm sure we'll talk about them more during our NFL preview show. Before we get on out of here, the Browns and the Tennessee Titans / Houston Oilers have had quite their history. The Browns lead the overall series 35-31. They were AFC Central rivals back in the day when they used to be the Houston Oilers. They've played a couple playoff games against each other, but the game that I think everybody remembers was back in 2014 when the Browns made that huge second half comeback and was able to win on the road in Tennessee. Jack, what do you remember most about that game in 2014? And is that the one against Tennessee that sticks out the most to you?
Yeah, it definitely does. Like you said, this rivalry goes back decades. They used to be rivals in the AFC Central, like you said, but that 2014 game sticks out to me because that's like literally the only one I remember besides the crap one in 2017 we had to watch. My brother was at that game, and the Browns went down 28-3, and I think he said he left and was outside the stadium and had to watch it outside the stadium when they made that epic comeback. And I just remember, being so pissed off, going to get something to eat, coming back, Tank Carter blocked the punt, and then the Browns just started rallying back. And Brian Hoyer and Ben Tate, I think that was his last game with the Browns. He had a monster game that day. Travis Benjamin scored the game-winning touchdown. And, it's just, that was the start of like the most fun Browns season that I got to watch up until obviously we know the disaster with Johnny Manziel and everything. But that game sticks out so much, and it's on YouTube as well as a lot of these other classic Browns, Titans / Oilers games. And I'm definitely going to have to watch some this week because I know I've heard stories about the 88 game, the 89 game, and there's been great games between these two teams, and I think we're going to see another one on Sunday as well.
Yeah, this Sunday is definitely going to be a tough matchup for the Browns. I don't think it's an easy W like everybody's making it out to be, but this game on Sunday is going to be very hard-hitting. Mike Vrabel is going to instill that in his team over there on the Titans sideline, so I expect nothing less from the Browns to match that and even surpass that come this Sunday. All right, Jack, before we get on out of here, is there anything else you want to discuss? Did I forget anything?
You are good to go, my man.
All right. I was going to say, I was about to take your silence as I was good, but must have forgot your mic again. All right, Jack, go ahead and plug what you got before we get on out of here.
As always, check out bigplay.com. I am the New Orleans Saints beat writer. We'll have some stuff up later this week to get ready for their season. Obviously, check me out on Twitter at jmccurrycle. And with that, take it away, Anthony.
As always, you can follow me on Twitter at Anthony Joki, J-O-K-I. You can follow the podcast on Twitter and on Facebook at 1085 Gridiron. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. We absolutely appreciate it. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. We thank you guys for listening to us. We'll be back this week with more episodes as we head up to the first game of the regular season. I think we're all excited for this upcoming season. And as we get on out of here, I'll leave you with this, as I do at the end of every episode. And it is always the most important thing, and that is go Browns.